ProclamationNation.com. I am Ginger Stamps with Nothing But the Hard Facts.
And I'm Jay Ruth with Nothing But the Truth, Ginger.
And today is episode 2, and we are going to title this The Isms of Our Nation. And now what my main goal here is to bring to light a few of the possible reasons why we are not awake to what is going on within our nation and how to overcome them by first recognizing what has been developed before us in order that we do not give in to that state of mind no longer. And according to conservapedia.com, socialism is a liberal economic system that state ownership or control all the major means of production and distribution of goods and services. Socialism is the economic system imposed by communism, but another one of the most well-known political parties of the 20th century, which was socialistic, was the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or the Nazis, which was headed by Adolf Hitler. And a good quote by Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Never forget that everything Hitler did in Germany was
legal."
Yep. Now, in practice, the socialist government owns the banks, the railroads, farmlands, factories, stores, and is the only employer, or at least controls the regulation of production and distribution. Now, the central goal is to destroy the evils of capitalism by government ownership or control of the means of production. Usually it's one party controlling the government on behalf of the working class. So the government controls all the investments, production, distribution, income and prices, as well as all organizations, schools, news media, and formerly private societies. Churches and labor unions are suppressed or controlled by the government. Socialism
it's virtually everything in the country.
That's right. That's right.
From social to economic, everything is controlled by the government.
That's right, yeah. So socialism is the antithesis of capitalism. Okay? Now, because it opposes private ownership of capital or land and rejects the free market in favor of central planning, it also rejects civil society and makes sure that all organizations are controlled by the government. Now, a certain Robert Owen from England stated that the government controls the volume of money and its economic applications and has the economy in a stranglehold. When government controls education so that nothing other than secular socialism may be taught, it controls the future destiny of a nation.
Absolutely.
It was Winston Churchill that said, "Socialism is a philosophy of failure, the creed of ignorance, and the gospel of envy. Its inherent virtue is the equal sharing of misery." Now, to demonstrate our government going in this direction, let's look at a study done by Dick Morris, an American political consultant, where he states that when Obama took office, federal, state, and local spending accounted for 30% of the gross domestic product.
GDP,
right. Now it's up to 35%, and when healthcare is fully implemented, it will rise to above 40%. If our government is to continue spending 40% of our GDP, we will morph into the European model of a socialist democracy. Now, in August of 2010, Hot Air declared the federal government is the nation's largest land manager. It already owns 1 of 3 acres in the United States. Now, this is apparently not enough because both Senate and the House Democrats have included $900 million to the full LWCF, or the Land and Water Conservation Fund, not subject to congressional approval. Okay, so now in communism, the primary variant of socialism, the central goal is to establish a workers' paradise. So it's an ideal state with perfect equality. Now,
we all know how that worked out for the Russian government. Right?
Exactly. So now, a few examples of this. If you were to look at the new Department of Justice website, there's no stars and stripes anymore, and there's a new quote. It says, "The common law is the will of mankind, issuing from the life of the people." The quote is from C. Wilfred Jenks, who in the 1930s was a leading proponent of this international law movement, which was as his goal to impose a global common law. So, and it was Margaret Thatcher that said, "Socialists cry power to the people and raise the clenched fists as they say it. We all know what they really mean. Power over people. Power to the state." In AmericanThinker.com, an article called "The Danger in Serving God from Americans." The Danger in Severing God from Americans' Identity by William Sullivan writes, "The gravest dangers of socialism are only realized when people take their faith from God and place it in frail humans, who by nature are capable of unspeakable atrocities. It was not because communists believed in socialism that led to their unquestionable evil. It was the forceful extraction of God from the people's ideology." And in 2 Timothy 3:1-5, it says this, "But realize this, that in the last days Difficult times will come, for men will be lovers of self, lovers of money, boastful, arrogant, revilers, disobedient to parents, ungrateful, unholy, unloving, irreconcilable, malicious gossips, without self-control, brutal, haters of good, treacherous, reckless, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, holding to a form of godliness, although they've denied its power, and to avoid such men as these. People who want to control others need people who are willing to be controlled. That's right. Independent, proactive people do not fit into this socialist power model. Okay. Now, all this leads me to the next part of the socialist equation, as you've been told. It has to do with corporatism, all about corporations. And again, a definition from conservapedia.com says the distinguishing feature of a corporation is that it is a separate legal entity from its owners. It has legal rights and obligations and is taxed on its earnings. But when someone sues the corporation, it's the business corporation, not its shareholders, and that's the party to that suit. So one great example of this concept is told in a documentary form called The Corporation. More details can be found at thecorporation.com. It won 26 international awards. Life-changing is all I can say. Awesome, awesome documentary. So taken from an article on globalissues.org, The Rise of Corporations, written by Anup Shah, he writes, of the 100 largest economies in the world, 51 are corporations, while only 49 are countries.
Whoa.
Yeah. So, taken from the book Global Problems and the Culture of Capitalism, written by Richard Robbins, he describes a corporation as a social invention of the state. A state grants a corporate charter permitting private financial resources being used for public purposes. Now, this initial creation of private finance and merchants was to aid in the expansion of a state to which it belonged and served to to expand colonial and imperial interest to start with, as well as help in war efforts between empires.
Right.
Okay? Now, corporations obviously had the potential to become very powerful, and even Abraham Lincoln admits this in a letter that he wrote to Colonel Elkins in 1864, stating, I see in the near future a crisis approaching that unnerves me and causes me to tremble for the safety of my country. Corporations have been enthroned in an era of corruption, and high places will follow, and the money power of the country will endeavor to prolong its reign by working upon the prejudices of the people until all wealth is aggravated and in the few hands of the republic, until all wealth is aggravated in a few hands and the republic is destroyed. So Lincoln obviously knew what was up back then. Now, it was a claiming of a corporation to be an individual in the United States in the 1800s and claiming the same rights as a person that helped to provide a large expansion of this corporate capitalism.
Well, one of the examples of this is on your tax returns. Your name is all in capitals on the front of your tax return, and that's to incorporate you. You are a corporation. Once you sign that tax statement, that's it. You owe the government that money. They incorporate you. They make you a corporation, because our Constitution reads it cannot tax individuals.
Right.
You can only tax corporations.
Okay, yeah, good point. So before 1886, when only humans had rights, it was the humans that were endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, and those human rights included the right to free speech, privacy, right to silence in face of accusation, and the right to live free of discrimination or slavery. Now, after 1886, it was while to this day, unions, churches, governments, and small unincorporated business do not have human rights, but only privileges humans give them. Corporations alone have moved into the category with humans as claiming rights instead of just privileges.
Right.
Okay. Now, in politics before 1886, in many states, it was a felony for corporations to give money to politicians, political parties, or try to influence elections. After 1886, corporations claimed the human right of free speech, expanded that to meet the unlimited right to put corporate money into politics, and have thus taken control of our major political parties and politicians.
Okay, so once again, this is another perversion of our Constitution by the liberals of this country.
That's right.
Just like we looked at last week when they perverted the separation of church and state, they've now perverted this as well.
That's right. In businesses, before 1886, states and local communities had laws to protect and nurture entrepreneurs and local businesses. And since then, after 1886, multi-state corporations claimed such laws were discrimination under the 14th Amendment. So since then, even in war, government elected, before 1886, government elected by and for we the people made decisions about how armies would be equipped and based on the will of the general populace, okay, and if and when we would go to war, okay. After 1886, military contractors grew to enormous size as a result of World War II, and a permanent arms industry came into being. Dwight Eisenhower called the military-industrial complex. It now lobbies governments to buy its products and use them in wars around the world.
Again, corporate money going into government.
That's right.
And influencing government.
Okay. Again, regulations. After 1886, corporations have claimed Fourth Amendment human right to privacy and use it to keep out OSHA, EPA, and to hide crimes.
Pause.